Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Carrow Road. Big game this afternoon, or it will be this afternoon when kick-off arrives. Norwich City hosting Burnley here today. 20 points ahead of Norwich City coming into this game, and of course sitting pretty at the top of the Championship as well. Really, really interesting contest awaits us, and in about a minute time or so we will bring you the team news. Lots of bits and bobs about particularly in terms of Burnley. There's been some speculation, social media speculation though, that they're missing quite a few players today through injury and illness, so we'll see how accurate those are. So let's see what happens in about a minute or so. Paddy Davitt, how are you?
Not bad. Yeah. These early morning, let's say early morning, it's 5:30. So and I've been up since 6:30.
Hello, we've got the team.
Anyway, digress.
Yes. Anyway, it is unchanged for Norwich City today. So they line up with Krul in goal, Aarons, Omobamidele, Hanley, and Yanulis as the back four, McLean and Sarah at the midfield two, Dow on the right, Hernandez on the left with Josh Sargent. Depending on how you want to do it, behind Teemu Pukki or up front with Teemu Pukki. The subs bench, Michael McGovern, Adam Ida, Marquinhos, of course, summer signing. I wish it was summer. January signing from Arsenal on loan. Sam McCallum, Christos Schollis makes the bench, Jakob Sørensen and Marcelinho Nunez. And the Burnley team, they have Peacock, Farrell, Roberts, Ekdal, Bayer, Matson, Brownhill, Cullen, Gudmundsson, Saruri, Teller and Barnes. So I think there's quite a few missing there. Certainly Muric, their first choice goalkeeper, doesn't look like he is in the squad, which is interesting. Neither is Jay Rodriguez, I don't think, who scored the winner in the reverse fixture back in October. Paddy, I mean, me and Adam kind of spoke about this on the preview show yesterday. I guess the real kind of bit for debate was probably in the wide areas, given the additions, one addition and one recall that Norwich City have brought into that area. Marquinhos from Arsenal, and obviously Christos Schollis coming back from FC Twente. I think I said yesterday it would have been extremely harsh, particularly in the early stages of his management here, for David Wagner to pull either of Kieran Dowell or Onel Hernandez out on current form, and it feels like he's kind of that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I'm not surprised that it's Marquinhos bench, Schollis maybe not quite there to be in consideration for the 18th, although he is on the bench, so there you go. But that is bold. And also, for me, talking of wide areas, I thought it was Yanulis and Sam McCallum was the only real dilemma if all of the 11 who started against Coventry were fit, which David indicated on Thursday afternoon they were. I'm slightly surprised it's gone Yanulis, because I remember Burnley, irrespective of the personnel that were on show today as opposed to Turf Moor, but wide areas, they were very, very good. Real pace, sharpness, threat. And I'm not trying to hypothesise that McCallum's a significantly better defender than Yanulis, but I just thought off the back of the second half at Coventry, where he shut down their threat in wide areas, allied to a better control across the midfield for Norwich in that second half, but also got an assist as well into the bargain. So I thought he might just edge towards McCallum, but he also said on Thursday, when asked about that area, yeah, thank you. Cheers. That basically Yanulis had played very well in the first two games, the Blackburn and the Preston games, and just had a bad half against Coventry. So good management, maybe, really. He did also indicate that Yanulis has been maybe struggling with a bit of a calf issue, didn't train the first week of the two that they had off. So he's weighed it up and he's thought Yanulis. But, I mean, ultimately, he's named the same 11 who have gone to Preston, won handsomely, gone to Coventry and got the job done in the end reasonably comfortably. In terms of the consistency, that sends the same message to that group that, yeah, I'm happy with the majority of what you've done in these first two games. Go again and try and do it against, as he said on Thursday, the best team in the division. So, not a huge surprise, that 11, really. A little bit surprising he's gone to Schollis and Marquinhos, but it cuts to what this manager's all about. Proactive, aggressive, wants to get on the front foot, wants to dictate onto others rather than be dictated to. And certainly with those two, plus Ida, if this game needs it, he's certainly got the attacking options to change it in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about those two. I mean, how much of them would you expect us to see today? I mean, obviously very dependent in terms of how the game is going, I would say. But in wide areas, I mean, how much do you think we will see of Christos Schollis or Marquinhos? Who do you feel is probably more likely to come into it earlier on in this contest?
That's an interesting one. It's hard to judge because, basically Wagner hadn't seen either of them, really, not up close. Yes, he happened to be there Schollis happened to be back when he first came in the door, but he was doing his rehab from Twente, and they were still at that point expecting him to go back to Holland and finish the season there. So it's really what has Wagner seen in these handful of training sessions. And so it's hard for us to second guess because we don't know. We've not been party to that. But I just think Marquinhos, given he's been operating in and around a team who are seemingly destined, or at least in a very good shape, to go and win the Premier League. The quality of play you're talking with there, it's no reflection on Jolis, but he wasn't really getting too many minutes at 20. Let's be honest, either side of his injury. If you're asking me which of those two do I think we'd see first off the bench, I think it'd be Marquinhos. And that'd be really exciting if it's dropped into a game where Norwich are firmly in it, because everything you read about him, everything anybody's seen clips of him, he's a player who can make things happen, and it might need it if it's a very tight affair with, 30 minutes to go, a quarter of the game to go. What an option to drop in, because he will certainly get this crowd excited, I'm sure, as Jolis would, and probably either would, because they're those type of players that they're not maybe quite sure what they're going to produce themselves. So ultimately, I think that's a really exciting attacking mix that he's got on the bench. But what you need is the players he's entrusted from the start to put them in a position where maybe they can bring them on as finishers if it's a deadlocked game early in the second half. And it could just take that. I'm putting in mind of what Ryan Lowe, the Preston manager, said, and Mark Robbins, actually, after both of those teams have been defeated, that essentially there was an admission that they just couldn't compete with Norwich's depth. With the ability to make 5 subs, Norwich have got that strength and depth, and have only added to it now, effectively bringing in Jolis, bringing in Marquinhos, to really affect change in a game. A lot of the clubs in this division don't have the length of batting order and Norwich do, and I think that will, for a lot of the games between now and the end of the season, could tip the balance, really. It's not necessarily the 11 who start, it's the options he's got from the bench to change it.
Yes, it is. In terms of defensive options on the bench, which feels like a lot of the conversation is around today, Norwich, of course, unchanged. If you've joined us slightly later, Marquinhos and Jolis both on the bench. In terms of defensive cover on the bench, Norwich looking at Jacob Sørensen and Sam McCallum. So no kind of natural centre-half on the bench. Of course, Ben Gibson missing this game because of the birth of his first child, and we obviously wish him and his family well at the moment. I mean, it's interesting you speak about depth, because perhaps one of the teams that can compete with Norwich City on that front is Burnley. I mean, Lyle Foster is someone who joined them in January for £8 million, is on the bench. Scott Twine is a name that Norwich City fans will be familiar with for his work in League One last season. Samuel Bastion, who's done well this season. Charlie Taylor, who's part of their more experienced group in that Premier League era. There's a lot of quality in that side, and it's really interesting, I think, from what I'm sure we'll come on to maybe this game in terms of a measuring stick, but certainly in terms of narrative. You've got David Wagner, who of course is probably comparable to Jurgen Klopp, if you want to go down that route, and Vincent Kompany, of course, who's perhaps a little bit more of a disciple of Guardiola. So there's a nice narrative though, if nothing else.
Well, yeah, it could be a very pleasing game, couldn't it? I thought, he didn't go into detail what he wouldn't do, would he? But when Wagner was asked about Burnley on Thursday, he said, full props, you can't argue with it. I mean, they come here today looking for a 9th consecutive win in the Championship. Just think about that. In this league, that level of consistency, not even drawing a game or two, 8 previous consecutive wins. They've lost 1 game since August. Powerful side, and we saw evidence of that at Turf Moor. It was a 1-0, but let's be honest, Norwich were very fortunate to be on terms there for as long as they were, and then ultimately it was decided by a penalty. But he did also go on to say, while giving them the due respect, that him and his coaches had identified 1 or 2 areas of vulnerability. He talked about they play a brave style of football, but that then maybe opens them up to a little bit of vulnerability. And ultimately, the challenge now is, can his players exploit that? So I'm really fascinated to see, in terms of the dynamic of this game, how it unfolds. You would expect Burnley maybe to shade possession, but both of the players Norwich have named in the 11 and the attacking players they've got on the bench, transitions, counters, we've seen it already in Preston, we've seen it at Coventry, that clinical edge. Norwich will get opportunities today, and if they take them, then Burnley will have to be very good, I think, to escape here with a result. For as good as they've been this season, Kompany himself said it in his presser, this will be one of their toughest games of the season, and I don't think that was a twee soundbite. I think he would look at it, see what Wagner has got out of this group of players, and know this is a completely different Norwich team he's facing in terms of mindset, mentality, than the one they played at Turf Moor in October. So, Burnley have been good, but they'll have to probably go again to get a result here today, because I think as we've seen already twice away from home, the style of football, those supporters who've been at Preston, who've been at Coventry, they can identify with it, they can get behind it, they can get energised and infused about it, passionate about it. And if they start anywhere like they did at Deepdale and at the CBS and get themselves in front, this place will go off, and that will be very hard for a visiting team to combat, as good as they have been this season.
Yes, absolutely. It's perfectly poised, this game. It's two sides who, as Paddy said, they're going very well. Norwich City, of course, have won their last 2 games in the division. It's David Wagner's first championship game here. I think we're 2 days short of it being a month from the last league game at Carrow Road, which is remarkable in itself. It hasn't been a particularly happy place here this season, Pat. I think they've won 1 in 10. Is it 1 in 9, 1 in 10 here now? 1 in 10, I think, in all competitions. They haven't won here since October, which was that game against Stoke. It's a big afternoon for Norwich City, isn't it? And less so in terms of result, I guess, because if they lose this game, they're still going to be in touch with the playoffs. And if they win this game, they're probably not. Well, they're close the gap to Burnley to 17 points or whatever it is. So. Not massive, perhaps, in terms of where they sit in the table, but certainly for feeling, for optics, for this sense that a fresh chapter has been kind of created. A win here today would, I think, would be close to fever pitch, wouldn't we, in terms of optimism and feeling?
Well, yeah. I mean, for reasons already stated, in terms of the level of opponent they're playing today, if Norwich could get the result today and play in the same manner that they played previously in the league under Wagner, it will be hard to keep a lid on it ultimately. But in terms of that, I mean, you quoted them Carrow Road stats, and it is horrendous, and it does underline. And anybody who was here for that Blackburn game, never to be forgotten for all the wrong reasons. The level of toxicity, the level of fury, and Dean Smith was at the eye of that particular storm. But Wagner has come in, and whenever he's been asked in terms of the micro elements of Juanel Hernandez or Kieran Dowell and what he's done and what they hadn't done in the past, he said, "Stop. That's not my experience of those players. That's not my experience of this club or the fans or the people around the club." Because for him, he's come in with a fresh pair of eyes. What's left in the past or what's happened in the past for him stays in the past, and I think that very much applies to the Carrow Road factor. Whatever's gone here before, in terms of the disconnect, for want of a better word. The diabolically poor results, the equally poor results, performances in terms of the consistency levels. That's gone. It's a new chapter under a new head coach. Same set of players, same fans, of course, but radically different mindset. And if they can continue on in the same vein, then I think those feelings of frustration that have been here, and not even under the surface because they ruptured to the surface against Blackburn, but I think they will dissipate pretty quickly if we can continue now in the same vein he started away from home in these 2 games. So I agree with you, Connor. In terms of a result and a 3 points or a 1 point or no points, it's not going to make too much difference to where Norwich are aiming for, which seemingly is a playoff position. Plenty of games left, plenty of points to play for. But it could transform the feeling in front of, as good as the away support was in terms of numbers at Preston and Coventry, there's going to be a full house here today or close to it. And to get your core support on side and fully invested in this project could be transformational for the season, I think.
Score prediction, Pat?
Well, you said 2-1, didn't you?
I said 2-1, I did, yeah.
Yeah. I could see a 2-1 for Norwich. I could see maybe a draw as well, if I'm honest. So bit of fence sitting. I think Norwich will get a result one way or the other, and that would hopefully feel like it's another step in the right direction. But of course, if they could edge it, then it will be very hard to just stay in the moment and not think to what's coming over the horizon.
Yes, well, and I am sticking with the 2-1 prediction, by the way, for Norwich. I didn't want people to think I was shirking out of it. I'm definitely not. If Norwich City can win here today, it will be, David Wagner will be the first Norwich City manager since Bruce Rioch in '98 to win his first league game in charge of the club. So there we go. That's probably a good sign for us to cut it off. Of course, Pinkin.com and the Pinkin Plus app, the place to go for all of the coverage and analysis from this afternoon's game. Thank you very much all for watching, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Thank you for your attention.